Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Newsbrowse News broadcast. According to a report by City News Everywhere, the Trump administration has proposed a new 10% additional tariff on Canada, Mexico, the United Kingdom, and several other countries. The Office of U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer announced the proposal following an investigation into forced labor in global supply chains. The report criticized Canada and other key trading partners for not doing enough to enforce bans on goods produced through forced labor, effectively creating an unlevel playing field for American workers. This proposed tariff would not apply to goods that comply with the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, CUSMA. In response to the tariff threat, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that his Liberal government supports the overall goal of eradicating forced labor and will soon introduce new legislation to address the issue within the coming weeks. The U.S. investigation, launched under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, is part of President Trump's broader global tariff strategy. While Canada already has rules against forced labor under CUSMA and existing domestic reporting requirements, the U.S. report criticized the Canada Border Services Agency for minimal enforcement actions and lack of transparency. According to a report by CBC, the Canadian federal government has announced plans to issue a new policy direction instructing the Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications Commission, CRTC, to review its recent decision regarding online streaming services. In May, the CRTC had announced a new mandate requiring major streaming platforms, such as Netflix, to contribute 15% of their Canadian revenues to support domestic content. The decision had faced strong opposition from the Motion Picture Association, which represents major U.S. streaming giants, as well as the U.S. ambassador to Canada, who called for the policy to be rescinded. In response, the Canadian government stated it will instead directly provide 600 million Canadian dollars to support the nation's audio and audiovisual sectors. Under the Broadcasting Act, the federal cabinet does not have the authority to directly overturn the CRTC rulings, but can issue broader implementation directives. Identity and Culture Minister Mark Miller remarked that the domestic industry is currently suffering while significant government funding remains frozen in ongoing litigation. The CRTC has acknowledged the government's plans and stated it will review the new policy direction once it is officially released. According to a report by CTV News, the Canadian government has endorsed a complex plan to relocate the country's last remaining captive whales and dolphins from the closed Marineland theme park in Niagara Falls, Ontario, to accredited aquariums in the United States and Spain. The relocation involves 30 beluga whales and 4 dolphins, which currently face the threat of mass euthanasia if the transfer falls through. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans has issued the initial CITES permits required for the move, which is expected to take place within the next few months. These marine mammals are destined for 5 facilities, including the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago, the Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta, SeaWorld locations in San Antonio and San Diego, and Oceanographic Valencia in Spain. Relocating these animals is an unprecedented logistical and financial challenge, and the government has not yet decided if taxpayer funds will be used to assist. Marineland closed permanently in 2024 following the deaths of 20 whales since 2019, and the relocation is necessary to finalize a major real estate sale of the property. According to a report by the Canadian Press, representatives from 14 of Canada's largest environmental groups gathered on Parliament Hill to urge the federal government to reverse course on what they are calling major rollbacks of environmental policy. The groups argue that Ottawa has gone too far in undermining environmental and climate protections, pointing to two discussion papers released last month. These papers propose allowing project approvals before reviews are completed and exempting certain developments from laws designed to protect species at risk. Environmental advocates warn that these proposed changes could push some species of whales toward extinction. Representatives are scheduled to meet with the Prime Minister's office and Environment Minister Julie Dabrusin. In response, Prime Minister Mark Carney defended the government's actions, stating on his way to a caucus meeting that the federal administration is not discarding environmental protections and highlighted its new nature strategy as evidence of its ongoing commitment to conservation. According to a report by the Canadian press, Canadian auto sales declined for the 8th consecutive month in May 2026. Data from DesRosiers Automotive Consultants, Inc. indicates that an estimated 184,000 light vehicles were sold during the month, representing a 1.7% drop compared to May 2025. Although May is traditionally the strongest sales month of the year, hopes of breaking the 190,000 vehicle barrier remained out of reach. The seasonally adjusted annual rate of sales fell to 1.78 million, marking the weakest performance of the year so far. Experts note that while official GDP data suggests a technical recession, the automotive sector has already been experiencing a feels-like recession for several months. This ongoing contraction is largely attributed to Canadian households scaling back their discretionary spending. Heightened geopolitical uncertainty stemming from the conflict in the Middle East has driven gas prices higher and fueled persistent fears of inflation, prompting consumers to delay major purchases like new vehicles. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.